Hi, today we're going to be continuing our note reading series by talking about finding notes on the keyboard. And I'm assuming that you have already been practicing the names of the notes on your flashcards and that you can do that really well before you move on to this next section. So as you can see, I have laid out some flashcards, and these are all C's. And I call this exercise the 3 C's. And even though there's 4 cards, you can see that these 2 notes are both the same. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find these cards and I'm going to put them on my keyboard. Excuse me, not on my keyboard, but on the piano, right above the keyboard. And you can see that that middle C is lined up right above the middle C on the keyboard. And you can find the middle C by just looking at the words on the keyboard there. And you know, the C's about in the middle of the words. That's kind of the easiest way. It's usually not too hard to find middle C. Okay, then what I do is I line this base C up so that it's over the next C over. So here's the middle C. And if I just go down to the very next C, that'll be the base C. Okay, and again back to middle C, and this next C up here is the treble C. And so what I've done, let's go back so you can see, is put these 3 C's so that they're directly over the note that they represent. So this middle C is this C right here. This base C is this C right here. You can see that we're not learning all the keys on the keyboard because we just probably won't use that many keys. We're really just using the middle notes that we use the most. Okay. The next thing that we do in this exercise is we pick up another card, like this one, and the first thing we have to do is figure out where it goes. Okay. So there's 4 choices. It's either lower than this, it's in between these 2, or higher than this one. And remember, low is left or down on the piano, and high is right. Okay? So if you put this next to this middle C, you can see that this note is actually in the bass clef, and that it's actually lower, so it belongs here. And then you can put it next to this one and decide if it's higher or lower than this one. So remember, any note that's lower on the page will actually be lower on the keyboard as well. So it's pretty easy that way. So this is where this one note goes. And if you've been practicing your flashcards, you'll know that this note is actually a G. Okay? And so this is pretty close to where it's going to be down here. You can see this is your middle C, and this is your base C, and in between these 2 C's there is only one G. There's only one choice of where it could be. So it has to be this one. And I ask students, after they place the card where it goes, to play the note and say the name at the same time, like this, G. And it's important to say it out loud. That really helps your brain to develop those connections. Okay, let's try another one. This one, if I compare it to middle C, I can see that this is higher than the middle C, but it's not higher than this one, so it'll go here. This note is actually one of the notes that's probably most often missed, so that's definitely a good one to give a little extra attention to. And this is an E, and looking down here, between these 2 C's, there's only one E, and there it is, E. Okay. Now there is a little bit of a variation to this exercise that you can try if this exercise gets either confusing or maybe you just want to have a little variation. And that's where I would leave the middle C and I would remove these other 2 C's, and I would actually put up these 2 notes, which is the high F and the low G. And that's because this low G and high F represent the highest and lowest notes on the grand staff. And this is all of the notes that we've learned so far in your piano lessons. Okay, and so then it gives you fewer choices about where the notes would go. So here's one, for example. We can tell that this is a treble clef note, so it has to be here. But it does give us a bigger space in between here and here of where this note could go. Now this one is an F, and it's here. One thing that you can notice is that this note is only a few notes above middle C, whereas this one is a lot of notes above middle C. There's quite a large difference between middle C and that note. Okay. Some others that you'll want to really work on are these notes that are near the middle. They tend to be a little more complicated. This one, as you can see, is a note that sits below the line, so it's actually lower than middle C, but it's very close to it. So it would be this B here. Okay, and then here is that same note written as a bass clef note. It's the very same B. Okay, and then here is the D, and this is where it can be confusing, because if you're looking at this C as opposed to this one, if you're looking at this one, it looks pretty easy, but if you're looking at this one, it's hard to tell which one is higher or lower. This one actually appears like it's higher, but remember, we're comparing it to the line because these notes can move around in here. So if you look at this line, this note actually sits above the line. It's sitting on top of the line. So this note is actually higher than this one. Okay? But still touching it. So here's the middle C and here's the D that's in our card. D. And that is it. So leave me a comment if you have any questions.